Welcome. This is a video of my painting process. To start out this project, I do a couple of thumbnail sketches in my sketchbook here. There are a couple of things that I'm trying to figure out with thumbnail sketches. One of them being whether or not I was going to work with a circle. I also had an ellipse canvas. So working within those different shapes, I wanted to do these sketches to determine which would work best for this composition. I'm also studying some of the basic shapes and the values, how I want them to work out in the final product. After the graphite sketch is complete, I spend a little time with watercolors, just blocking in some basic colors and furthering the study of values. Got to work on those simultaneously, which is interesting. Kind of drew my focus away from what composition was working and which wasn't. But it was obvious to me after the sketches were complete. So with those done, I had made the decision to work on a circle, which I have here primed with a mid-tone, which just makes establishing the value structure of the underpainting easier. I load the paper blending stub with some graphite to begin sketching out the basic layout. You can see here it's very, very rough shapes, but with some measurements, distances and angles. With that done, I move on to establishing some values for the underpainting. For the underpainting, I use 3 colors, those being white, phthalo blue, and burnt umber. Burnt umber, yeah, or is it burnt sienna? Whatever, a reddish brown. The burnt umber and the phthalo blue, when mixed together, basically in equal parts, I'll decide whether I want it to lean toward a warm color or a cool color. But with those mixed together, I get a dark value that serves as my near black, and I stay away from using black out of the tube as it doesn't mix very nicely with other paints, and seldom do I want such a solid black, whereas there's a little more life with a mixed black. Continuing to work out shapes of value. I'm not concerned, of course, with color at this point with the underpainting, but mostly shapes and values. Looking at the way that those things interact with each other throughout the composition. There's note making at this point as well. with regards to shapes. And some varieties, details that will come into the painting later, but I want to be thinking about where they lie within the composition beforehand. So I begin working with color here. First color mixing being the green, as there's quite a bit of green in this painting, which is a color I don't use very often. It's challenging, but there's of course a lot of life with greens and finding those relationships between cool greens and warm greens, and using different colors, different pigments to either saturate or desaturate that green. I'm working from general to specific, and that's helpful for a lot of things. You can see here, I've jumped ahead a little bit in the process, but the shapes are still fairly simplified, and most of it is just serving as notes for the future of the painting. I work from general to specific for a lot of reasons. It's a method of management of the process, as well as allowing areas that I'm not interested in being the focus of the painting to exist in a lower resolution, as opposed to the areas of higher resolution where I want the focus to be. Of course, being the reindeer and the girl, and specifically her face. So I do multiple passes on the elements that should draw more attention. It's an interesting challenge, painting small faces and trying to figure out what resolution I want them to exist in. You know, her whole face is about the size of my thumb, and so I'm trying to figure out what I can get away with. Working at a small scale is interesting for experimenting with those levels of resolution, or how abstract the shapes become. You can see I've pretty much finished the face there, and I'm trying to work into the clothing with levels of detail, a resolution that is appropriate given the context of the background and the highest resolution area being the face. I like to think of these things all similarly, whether it's your value structure or areas of resolution, or your soft edges versus your hard edges, and that being, all those things have a relationship. Hard edges are only hard within the context of soft edges. Same with resolution. So as you want to draw someone's focus to an area of the painting, you may have more hard edges and higher contrast, and alongside that, closer attention to some of the subtle transitions. So most of the subtleties in this painting exist within her face and her clothing. Next to that would be the reindeer. Then the ground where they are. And then, of course, the background being lowest resolution. The acrylic paint dries darker, and so I have to remember to go a little lighter than I think I need to initially in order to get the value that I need once it's dry. So it takes me a number of passes to get up to the highlights or the lightest values in the painting. Here I'm playing with some wildflowers in the foreground here. I'm also paying attention to the edges. You can see here I've used harder edges for some of these flowers while they soften both in front and behind of the reindeer. That's where the plane of focus exists, or that range of focus. I want to see some of those colors, the yellows, whites, and some purple flowers trail off into that background a little bit. And with those final details complete, the painting receives a signature. Except it wasn't complete. There were some trees in the background that needed a little more work. So after signing it, I worked on those some. Anyways, thank you for checking out this process video. I hope there were some interesting things. Hoped that some ideas are helpful to you and that you enjoy this image, because I think it's cool. Thanks.